Hi, everyone. Welcome to another show. I am Powerful Movement. My name is Janice. I have a special guest with you today. Her name is Christy. But first, I just want to inform everyone about what the I Am Powerful movement is all about. It's about just giving everyone a platform to really educate others about what their story and experiences of certain topics, so we all can learn from one another. So I am Powerful Movement. I have this little poem I want to share with you all, and it goes like this. The podcast is about, let me take you to a place of inspiration where empowerment meets transformation. It's the I Am Powerful movement, spreading positivity, changing lives worldwide. From motivational speeches to story of triumph, this channel's beacons, helping us all climb. They encourage us to embrace our inner strength, to believe in ourselves, go to any length. I Am Powerful movement, hear the call on YouTube. They stand, inspiring one and all. From words of wisdoms to moments of reflections. They ignite us, our spirits, sparking self affection. Through their videos, they uplift and empower, teaching us resilience hour after hour. With captivating stories, they break through the noise, fueling our passions, reminding us of our choice. They share insights, uncovering our potential, guiding us on a path that's truly essential, from self love to personal growth. They're here to hide, to guide. I'm sorry. Give me a follow and likes and subscribe to my channel and share with your family and friends if you feel that this will benefit you and others, that we can all really inform and educate one another, because we are truly living in an informational world right now. It's all about mindset, right? So again, thank you for your love and support. So with no further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you my beautiful guest, whom I call friend as well. Her name is Christy Barker. And Christy Barker has been a performer, dancer, and educator for over 20 years, with a unique background in improvisational comedy and dance choreography. Christy was part of an award-winning choreographer team that produced dance theater shows in Los Angeles from 2003 to 2010. She's currently a precious metal, gold and silver consultant and educator. Christy's also performance career unfortunately had to put on hold because in 2017, because she had witnessed her ailing father experience elder abuse, and she needed to act quickly as his power of attorney to protect him. And this experience really brought her to be a warrior that she is today, uh, for her father, and forever changed her life. And she had made her life mission to really advocate others about elder abuse awareness, and that's what we're here to talk about, more about it. And you can also follow Chrissy and her under the description, all her social media link, website, YouTube channel, and all that. So, hi, Christy. How are you? How are you doing? And
Hi.
what have you been up to, Christy?
Oh, thanks, Janice. I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me to speak on your beautiful podcast. As your friend, I'm so proud of you for doing this and putting yourself out there. And I'm really, really touched that you're willing to hear my story. And I was really grateful that you said, yes, let's talk about it. Because I feel like abuse, and in my case, this was elder abuse, it does need to be brought to light and it does need to be discussed. We don't want to hide it and not talk about these things. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, right before we go into that elderly abuse awareness, so on a positive light here,
Yes.
how I met Christy was also through a the Truth Tour. And I we were mesmerized with what's his name?
Yeah. Are you asking me? Ismail
It,
Perez.
Ismail Perez. Yes. We went to one of the tour back in October. I believe it was in Anaheim, right?
Mhm.
Yes. So a bunch of us ladies were in this, trying to get pictures of him as he show up as a special guest, and we're just all in awe that he's live in person. And I glanced over, and I saw Christy. She was wearing this beautiful bright green top. Um, and she just had a beautiful smile, and I don't know, I'm just brave. I guess that's just part of me. I guess it kind of introduced myself. Hi. Oh my god, isn't he great? uh what's your name? And pretty much that was the start of it. And now we form a little group, we call our um light light seeds, or what you call it,
Soul Tribe. We have our Soul
Soul
Tribe.
Tri
Yeah.
family, yes. So we try to have a get together once in a while. So it's been really nice to be around, be surrounded like-minded people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think of the whole truth tour, Christy? What?
Well, I think it's been such a wonderful. I mean, Lewis Herms is such a wonderful warrior, and that he's just non-relenting. He keeps on doing them and spreading the truth. And we've got to meet like-minded people, and it's just we can speak his praises forever. He's just a wonderful, wonderful person for sure. Yeah.
Yes, yes, Louis Herm. Check him out on thetruthtour.net for more information. And I think you and I can agree, we are in this really this generation of learning. We are yearning to learn about the truth.
Hmm.
And so therefore, instead of, seeking the media, um, which is very, I guess, limited sources out there. So
Right.
people would find uh, pretty much people on podcasts or YouTube channels like mine, just to really have a very um, mature conversation with one another. And this is just based on our experience, and our knowledge and opinions. So please don't think that it's just one way, or we're professional in anything like that. So you really just have to take what resonate with you, and go from there. We don't have to believe everything's out there, right? So yeah, so we live in this information world, and with that comes with ability of choices that we have, the power of choices, what really impact us, and in our livelihood. So, real quick, can you briefly talk about your dance world experience? Because I came from a dance team myself back in when I was high school and senior year, and I remember lots of practice, lots of time dedication, and performances, which is the really the the adrenaline of it. Like you get to put on a show. Yeah, how'd you get into it? And
I
20
can.
years, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's actually over 20 years. I was
Oh, very long time.
But Janet, I can totally picture you dancing. You have such a beautiful smile, and you're so animated. And I bet you're a great dancer. I love dancing, and I was a dance major in college and a theater minor. And I met some really, really great friends, and I'm still friends with them right now. Some really great girlfriends who were outstanding dancers, and we got together around 2003, and we started to create our own dance shows. And it was really a very fruitful time in my life where we just collaborated in such a great way, and it was really, really fun. And as a team, we were recognized here in the San Fernando Valley. We won some awards. It was kind of cool. And so a lot of my experience was more in the choreography realm, and as well as dance performance as well. But after a while, one of my main collaborators had some children, and her life changed, her priorities changed, and we parted ways. There was no drama, and it was one of the things I was most proud of. And it happened to happen when my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer, and it started around that time when it was a very difficult time for me. And the dance group and my dance friends, it was very cathartic to do dancing at that time. Dancing has been very therapeutic for me too. Yes.
Oh yeah, it can be. And in the dance world, it's really a community, family oriented place because you see each other so often. It's great. It's really great to build friendship and especially confident. I remember being on dance team. It really brought me out in the, in the light because believe it or not, I wasn't this blunt or this
Oh,
brave and talkative. You know, I was this little hermit.
really?
Oh, imagine that. But yeah, the dance team really brought me to be like, hey, Janice, you know, you can do anything you want. And so just, you know, really embrace the light and enjoy the music and be in a moment. I remember just being in a moment. I recall like when you're performing, you have to, as a performer, let me know if this is true, but from my experience, I usually tend to visualize myself before putting on a performance, you know, like, so that way when the actual performance happen, i'm not I'm not shocked by it, or I'm not scared like, oh my god, all this eyes are on me right now. um so that really helps me, like, being, you know, being a choreographer. I'm
Oh,
sorry if I
it's
butchered
such a
that word.
word. No, that's a tough word. I have a hard
That's
time
a tough
saying
word for, yeah. But it's a very important role that you have there, because the dance move are so integrate, everything is in sync. It's all because of the you're pretty much a coach,
it. Mhm.
and you have such a positive and big influence to, you know, to the youth, to the team that you're working with. Can you tell us tell us about, you know, how you really what you call it, like, what's the prep talk, you know, like, hey.
Well, wow. I mean, it's funny that you should say visualization. That's a word I have trouble saying. But that was something that I definitely used a lot with performance for sure, is going through the performance in my mind before it happens. And, we just had so much fun. The girls that I worked with were such great dancers. And so I don't know if they needed so much pep talk from me. But I know that that really worked for me. Something that worked for me too was to listen to the music a lot, because I just really love music, and I also enjoy singing with music and listening to music. So I would listen to a lot of our dance show music just when I was out shopping or driving around or cleaning the house, and I would just visualize the choreography and things like that. So when you mentioned visualization, I definitely feel like that's something I used a lot of when I was thinking of ideas for choreography. And then also when I was practicing, I definitely would visualize and just listen to the music just in the background. So it was in my body. Yeah, it's very powerful.
It's a powerful thing. I mean, you're, you know, now that we know about the power of sound frequency,
Mm-hmm.
the everything that we store in our emotion body, you know, you heard of that. And then being a dancer, you're actually releasing that. You know, it's just like you letting the music move you, and we are vibrational being as well. And then everything is just, it's so therapeutic, like you said. You know, I guess there's a phrase say, once you're a dancer, you're always a dancer, no matter what form. Could be yoga, could be anything, right? What have you been doing lately with, you know, uh, uh, the the after dance, the dance world that
Yeah.
you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not actively performing right now, but I am very much in training. I don't know what I'm training for, but I'm training for something. I'm only doing ballet right now. And when everything shut down in March 2020, I made a commitment that I was still going to do ballet, and I do it 6 days a week. I do it on with YouTube videos. And then right now I'm also taking class. So that was something that really helped me, because during all the elder abuse, the lawsuit that I went through, and all that trauma, dance was really my therapy. And just because the dance studios closed down, I wasn't going to stop dancing. So I continued to do that. I've been doing it for over 3.5 years now. I do ballet 6 times a week. And then I take some classes as well. And the dance teachers are friends of mine. One of them is a very close friend of mine. So it's really become my therapy right now. And I feel like at some point I will perform again. So I don't know when, but right now I'm enjoying the process, and it's very difficult. Janice, ballet is it's crazy hard, but it's nice to have a discipline. And again,
Wow.
it's it helped me deal with some of the shenanigans that I witnessed with the stuff with my
Yeah.
dad.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so tell us more about your dad and what's
Yeah.
your relationship, like and everything and yeah,
Yeah.
maybe the beginning part of it.
Yeah, it's a crazy story. So feel free to stop me and explain and
Of
have me
course.
explain. But like I mentioned before, well, first of all, I'm an only child. I don't have any siblings. Both my parents at this point are deceased. My parents were both public school educators in my hometown and loved to teach. They they were great teachers. They loved their job. They didn't do it for the money. There's not much money to be had from public school teaching, but they loved it. And they loved the kids. Really good people. Of course, I'm biased, but I think most people, their friends and former students would just say they were great teachers and great people. And as I mentioned before, in 2003, when I was in the height of all that collaboration with my dancer friends, my mom was diagnosed with colon cancer and she
Oh,
passed
sorry.
away. Thank you. She passed away right after my birthday in 2005. So that was just, me and my dad having to go through a really tough time. And my dad really had a tough time. And as anybody can imagine, he was grieving, he was lost, and he tried to date after she died. And he dated a woman that he really liked a lot, who was a ballroom dancer, who I liked a lot. But she decided that she didn't like him as much. And so he was really devastated because he said he got dumped. So he was
Oh,
grieving my mom, and also had just dealt with a really painful breakup. And he decided to go on to do some online dating. And that's where he met the woman that he would marry. Her name is Mitzi, also a widower. And they ended up getting married in 2007. So that's when he met this woman. So it's kind of crazy. She has one daughter, just like my dad has me. So she has one biological daughter, but her husband, who had passed away, he had had two other wives before her. And with those two wives, he had three children each. If that makes sense. So my dad and I, in this small family of three or two, we entered into this really big family. So all of a sudden, we were in this huge family, this huge step family. So basically, her daughter and I had six other step siblings, and they were all older than me, and they all had children. Most of them had children. So it was this huge family. So all of a sudden, my dad and I are in this huge family, and he seemed so happy. And she did seem a little off at the beginning, but it became more apparent as the years went by and his health started to fade that there was something really off with both her and her daughter. But he and I were very trusting, and all of a sudden we were in this big family. And there were some people in the big family who were actually really nice. And so I enjoyed being a part of this big family for a while. But he had been a very heavy set guy when I was growing up. And I was concerned about his health because my mother had had cancer. And when he married Nitsi, she was a former nurse, so she whipped him right into shape. So he lost a lot of weight with her, which I was really happy about. And he was in the Coast Guard. He loved the ocean, and they would go on a lot of cruises. So he seemed to be very happy, is what I'm saying, Janice. He seemed to be very happy. But he started to develop dementia and Alzheimer's about 9 years after that. So about 2016.
and
And
how
that's,
old was your dad this time?
gosh, uh, he might have been 68 or so when he started to develop Alzheimer's and dementia. And around this time, she started to try to get the whole family to go on these big family cruises. And she was very generous with her gifts, but she was also kind of off. I could sense through the years some mental instability. And she initiated this big cruise to Alaska for this whole family. And it was, I was happy to be included, but it was important for me to go because I knew I wanted to spend time with him. But prior to that, she had announced an email that he officially had dementia. So this was in 2016. And
Wow.
so we went to Alaska with this huge family, and my dad and she said I could bring a friend of mine. So I brought a friend of mine from my childhood, my friend Teresa, who's a great supportive friend. And she was my witness. And he was clearly a man who was forgetful. And there was one day when we were in Alaska, we were at the small town called Skagway, and Teresa and I went on this train ride. You know, you go on these little excursions. And then we saw my dad wandering around this small town in Alaska by himself, confused, like a man with dementia who was in a place that he wasn't familiar with. And we found out that she and her daughter and their children her grandchildren had gone ziplining, and she left my dad to just do his own thing. So it was really upsetting. It was witnessing basically some neglect. And my friend was able to kind of talk me down, but I could see that if we had not run into my dad in that town, he would have been just kind of wandering around, and that's not good for a man with dementia and Alzheimer's. And you know what, Janice, I want to go back a little bit too, because I want to say, so I mentioned that we were a family of 3 and my parents were public school educators. So public school educators don't make a lot of money. But my mom, her family had moved in the Depression, so the 1930s, early 1940s. They were very humble farmers, very salt of the earth, very grounded people who moved from Oklahoma area to Santa Monica. So they settled in Santa Monica and they bought property in Santa Monica. These were very humble people, and property value from 1940s to the 2000s in Santa Monica got really high. So my grandparents and my grandma lived in Santa Monica and they had property. And when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, her mother died. So my mother had inherited the sale of that property. So she inherited a lot of money that I was dancing at the time. My grandma had just died and my mom had cancer. I wasn't thinking about the money. But my mom, we had money that normally public school educators wouldn't have. And then she died and my dad inherited that money. So basically, my dad, once she died, he had a lot of money. And this woman, Nitsi, she knew that. And I just was oblivious because, again, I was dancing. I was having so much fun with my friends. So basically, if we go back to this Alaska trip, we were paying for, my dad and his wife, Nitsi, were paying for a family of 27 people to go on an all expense paid trip to Alaska cruise. And some of the people, some of her grandchildren who were like in their early 20s, she paid for them to go from Pomona to LAX in a Hummer limousine. So she paid for them to be, and then once on the cruise, everything's paid for, and it can be very luxurious. The dining room and the cafeteria, everything's paid for. But you can, I don't know if you've been on a cruise, but you can upgrade too. And she upgraded for us to go to this fancy restaurant, all 27, and at say 5 tables, and she paid for all this wine. So there was all this money being spent as my dad's memory was slowly fading. And my friend Teresa, who came with me, she's awesome for many reasons, but she's an accountant. So she was clocking all this. She's like, Hummer limousine. And she's like adding it all up in her head. Wine at every table. She was kind of like, this Nitsy's spending all this money. So it was just really interesting. And
wow.
then yeah.
No, I mean, just to base, I mean, this is the first time I'm hearing the detail of this, but
Crazy.
coming just based off the impression of that's, I'm sorry to say, but this sounds like a gold digger
Oh, for sure.
opportunity.
Cue the Kanye West. Like, this is
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
And
hey, I hit a jackpot with this guy who's, not mentally there. So I'm just going to utilize that. Because if you think about it, if a true partnership, they would be financially a team together. I mean, I'm would hoping, if she really truly loved your dad, she would want to save that money for something better and not just like, oh, let me cover 20 something people. That is truly expensive. I've been on a cruise myself. I know.
yeah.
It gets really crazy. It's
And as
like,
a photographer, yeah, you might appreciate too. She paid for everyone to get family portraits.
wow.
That was an upgrade. Now, at the time, though, I was still, both me and my dad trusted her. He and I are both very trusting. And the way it was spun was like, this is the one time we're all going to get together. Let's make best use of this. I got to spend time with my dad. My friend Teresa and I had a really good time. She's a dancer too. We danced at the club. We had a lot of fun. But that was the first time I saw possible neglect of him when he was wandering around that town. But as
Quick
soon as,
question:
yeah,
How long were your dad and his wife at the time married? Since the time from the time they met till maybe the Alaska cruise, how long has it like they've been together?
they were officially married in 2007. So this was in 2016. So this is about, was that 9 years later? No,
Oh, okay.
less. Yeah. So anyways, as soon as we got back, even though this was spun as like, oh, this is a great time for us all to come together. And, Teresa and I had fun almost the day or a day or two after we got back. Nitsi was already sending out an email to everybody to invite us on a cruise, a 14-day cruise to the Panama Canal the following Christmas. And it just felt uncomfortable for me. It's like too much money. And there was something manipulative about it. And I basically said, no, I'm not right in a place to commit to that right now. And I know that really upset her. But they planned that cruise as soon as we got back. So basically, it wasn't the only cruise we were ever going to do as a family. They were going to make another one. She was going to initiate another one for a longer time. The other one was 10 days. So this would have been a 2-week cruise to the Panama Canal. So it's just crazy. So that was in 2016. And then a year later, almost exactly a year later, my dad, who's already had dementia and Alzheimer's, he had congestive heart failure and he almost died. So in 2017, he went to the hospital. They had to do something with some valve. I don't know. He almost died. And she kept telling the doctor, we have a cruise. We're supposed to go to the Panama Canal. Just kept bringing up this cruise to the Panama Canal. And he almost died. And I spent some time with him in the hospital without everyone there. And she would boss. She was a former nurse. She would boss around the doctors, just very obnoxious. And we had some time together, my dad and I, and he woke up and, he was on medication and it was a very close call. And he said to me, he said, I'm so scared for you. He said, they're going to hurt you. Whoever did this to me, they're going to hurt you. And it was really kind of weird. And I chalked it up to just, he had medication, people might say something like that when they've gone through a health thing. But one of my best friends says, no, I think he kind of knew that they were not out for his best interest or yours, So that was in 2017. And so meanwhile, once he got out of the hospital and his heart was failing, he got some sort of procedure done. So he was okay. He survived that, but he had almost died. But his Alzheimer's and dementia got worse. So basically, let's move ahead a little bit to December 2017. And I was working for the LA schools at the time. But in December 2017, we had crazy fires here in Southern California. So we had fires all around the San Fernando Valley. And because of that, the schools were closed. So there was a random Friday when the schools were closed, so I didn't have to go to work. And my dad's brother, my uncle, who I love dearly, he sent me an email and he said, Christy, because of what's going on with your dad, you might want to look at your dad's will, your dad's trust, and just make sure you understand the contents. And my dad, once he married Nitsi, he gave me a copy of his trust and will. And I didn't look at it because I'm like, Dad, no, I don't want to think about you dying. I just put it away. And then a little later, he gave me another copy of his trust and will. And I'm like, Dad, come on. Like, okay. He was very prepared and I just put it away. And then after Alaska, he gave me another copy. So I had 3 copies of his trust and will. And so my uncle had said that. And so because I didn't have to work, because it's not really like fun for me to look through legal documents. I don't know about you, Janice, but like reading a will and trust, it's like, So I went and I looked that Friday and I looked and I saw that Nitsi and I were power of attorney for his healthcare. Nitsi and I were power of attorney for his finances. We were also we were co-executors for his will and co-trustees for his trust. So he had the 2 of us working together as a team to make decisions for him. My guess is that's how it was with my mom. It probably was me and my mom and me and my mom. And I think what he did was he just switched out my mom's name for her. So, and I looked at it and I emailed my uncle and I said, just so you know, it looks like Nitsi and I are supposed to work together as a team. And I let him know. And then I decided to go down and visit him because I had this random day off. And so I went down, and it turns out he had a doctor's appointment for someone who was working on his memory. And I got there, and she didn't like that I was there, but I was there and I wanted to go. And she said something like, "Oh, we're gonna make we have something to do because we're gonna make some changes to his trust." And then walked away from me, and I said, "What changes?" And she didn't say anything. So I was like, "Huh, that's weird," because I got up and I looked at the trust today, the most recent version of the trust and will. And so then I went with my dad to do this kind of like, did you ever play memory, Janice, or do your daughters play memory, like that memory game? So it was kind of like they were working on his memory, and he was having such a hard time. He's very frustrated because his memory was gone. It was frustrating to see that. Then we ended up going back to his home, and she happened to not be there, which was really unusual because usually she was. And I saw on the kitchen table stack of documents with Post-its, like little fluorescent Post-it marks saying sign here, sign here. And I looked through it, and sure enough, she, and I believe her daughter, I had been replaced. So basically it was Nitsi and her daughter, Carrie, as power of attorney for healthcare, Nitsi and her daughter, Carrie, as power of attorney for finances, Nitsi and Carrie as co-executors of his will and co-trustees. So my name had been replaced. So I was so upset.
I would be too. Wow.
And I let him know. I said, "Dad, this is not what I just saw." And he started crying. He's like, "I'm so sorry." He hadn't signed anything yet. So when she came home, I confronted her. I said, "I am his daughter." And she told me that I had bailed on him, that her daughter was a better daughter to him than I was when he was recently in the hospital for his heart failure. It was awful. And then he started crying. And I basically said, "Dad, in front of Nitsi, I said, is this what you want? Do you want Carrie to replace me?" He said, "No." He said, "No." So that happened in front of her. And then I went to leave because I was so upset and I couldn't stay any longer. I felt like I needed to talk to somebody. And I went to hug him, and he was crying, Janice. He was crying, and he wouldn't let me go. He wouldn't let me go. But I said, "Dad, I have to go." And meanwhile, she went out of the house and was on the phone, probably to her daughter. And I said, "I have to go." And so I went home and I called my best friend, Raimi. And then I called his best friend. So he has a friend named Bob, who is his best friend. And his wife, Hazel, is my mom's best friend. So I called them. And then I have to tell you, I happen to have a friend who my mom loved, who did theater with me when I was a kid, who just happens to be a lawyer. And he had seen in September that on Facebook, he had seen that my dad had almost died. And he texted me, really nice guy named Lawrence, or I call him Larry. He said, "Hey, I hope everything's okay with your dad. I remember your dad well. If you have any questions about his trust and will, please don't hesitate to contact me," because he's a lawyer that deals with this exact kind of law. He had
It
said that
almost feel like it's heaven. It's like
for sure.
while you were, I guess, awakening to
Yeah.
this abuse or this scam that
Yeah.
your dad was part of, you start attracting the right people. That's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Oh, no,
About the lawyer.
scam is exactly the right word. And I want to tell you something funny about Larry, who's a dear friend of mine. And again, we did theater together. We kind of had junior high school crushes on each other, but we were just friends. But my mom loved him. She thought he was the nicest kid ever. And my parents, as teachers, often liked my friends, but she really liked him. And his middle name is Jennings, which is my mother's maiden name. Isn't that kind of weird? So his middle name is the same. So it's kind of this weird thing. So in September, this happened in December, he had texted me to say, "Hey, don't hesitate if you have any questions." So I went home and I called my friend. I called my dad's friend. And then I texted him. I said, "Larry, I think I need your help." He's like, "Great, let's talk tomorrow." So I was able to tell him everything that I had seen up until now. And he happened to know. So he's a lawyer that would fight in court. fight in front of a judge. But the person who does the power of attorney and the trust, that's a different kind of lawyer. That's an attorney. So he happened to know somebody at the man who did my dad's trust and will. He happened to know somebody at that actual law firm. So he's like, I'm going to make some phone calls. I'm going to email this guy and we're going to get this all taken care of. So he sent an email. This is all for free to the guy. He said, listen, you cannot, because basically Nitzy was calling him on the phone, and they're not really supposed to do that. They're supposed to have the person in person to make changes. And he said, this man has been diagnosed with dementia. If you take directions from his wife, like, this needs to be rectified or else there's going to be a lawsuit. So basically he did that on my behalf. And then she still wanted to make changes. So she made a meeting at his place, at this lawyer. And he said, or he tried to do it over the phone, or she tried to do it over the phone. But he said, no, I got a call. You guys have to come in person. So I went in person and met up with my dad and her daughter. And my lawyer, Larry, was going to come with me, but he chose not to because he thought he might be a witness, or he might need to be my lawyer, and he didn't want to be a witness. And my dad's friend, Bob, said he felt uncomfortable. So I went by myself. And basically, I explained to this attorney, I said, my dad has had all these health problems. He almost passed away, all this stuff. And Nitzy accused me. She said, she's just after his money. And her daughter started yelling at me. And she kept telling him, she's like, we're going to go on this cruise to the Panama Canal. We need to get this all settled right now. So in front of these women just yelling at me because they're sociopaths. And my dad said, I want no change, no change. So he said that in front of all of us, including the attorney. And the attorney even asked us all to leave just to make sure my dad had no influence. And there were no changes made. So we came back and he said no changes. So no changes were made. But still, I had seen such awful behavior. And about a week later, they went to the Panama Canal. So here was my dad. He was 140 pounds with this heart issue. And I witnessed their financial exploitation of him. And I didn't go, but my friends were afraid. Did you ever see Weekend at Bernie's, Janice? I'm a little older than you. Do you know the movie Weekend at Bernie's?
No.
Okay.
I have heard of it, yes.
Okay, well, it kind of, my friends and I would laugh. It wasn't funny, but we would kind of laugh because they were making my dad sign things. And in that movie, these two gentlemen they're with a dead millionaire, but they're making everyone think the millionaire still knows what he's doing. And that guy's actually dead, but we would reference it because it was ridiculous. So he went to the Panama Canal, and I was so afraid he was going to die. He just had all these heart problems, and they took him on a plane. And as this power of attorney to Florida, they flew from Los Angeles to Florida with all his heart problems, and then did a cruise to the Panama. And so knowing that they left him alone in Alaska, if you remember, I told you they left him alone wandering. I have this friend who's kind of funny, and she was like, they're going to leave him on a donkey. But it was kind of fun. Like, it wasn't funny, but I was thinking, yeah, they might just leave him there because they were really into spending all this money. And so anyways, the story continues, but I don't know. There's more to it.
So you didn't go on this, Christy, you didn't go on this trip with him, but your father did to the Panama with his wife and her family, that all expense paid, right?
Yeah.
How long was the cruise, and did he come back?
He came back. Yeah, the story
continues.
But I didn't know. I thought that might have been him. It was that might have been the last I saw of him, and it was 14 days. This one was a 2-week cruise, all expense paid for this family of 27 or so. I didn't go. And I really thought I might not see him again. But what I was doing was I was talking about it like I am with you. I would call his friends. I started telling everybody. And my dad's brother who talked to me or emailed me, I called him and my aunt, and they wanted to start paying for Larry. They were ready, the lawyer. They were so upset that this happened. My uncle only ever refers to Nitzy as the evil one. He won't even say her name. And the story does continue. The abuse continues, but he did get back okay. But I was really upset. And I was his power of attorney along with her. I sent her an email. I said, I'm really uncomfortable about this cruise after all he's been through with his heart, about him flying out to the Panama Canal. You know, I don't think you should let him go. Like, I could watch him, but she ignored my email.
So after he came back from the cruise, have you noticed any like health changes or any mental, emotional Did
Yes.
your dad change, in other words?
He was kind of okay, still forgetful, and Larry had said, okay, we got what we want. And my lawyer friend, he said, just play it cool. Don't let her know that, just go along with everything. And so we did that. And I emailed her. I said, hey, when's my dad's next doctor's appointment? I'd like to attend. She didn't respond. So I would ask her health related questions. She wouldn't reply. There was one time during spring break, I was working for the schools, but I had time, and I knew somehow I knew that he had another therapy, like memory type physical therapy. And I said, hey, I'm going to come. And she's like, no, you don't need to come. Well, no, I'll be there. She's like, no, like we got in this text exchange because she just didn't want me to come to be with my dad but I went anyway. But meanwhile, I do have to say that because of the money that he had through my mom's inheritance and her passing, he had purchased a condo in my hometown. He had purchased a condo that he, as husband and wife, they shared 50% of the condo. And also this condo that I'm in right now that's not paid for, but it was something that he had paid for me. And we did transfer the property over to me. So that's okay. But there was this condo in Simi Valley I was supposed to get half of. And so that was part of the money that he had. And so meanwhile, Nitsi and I are kind of getting along okay, kind of. I'm coming to doctor's appointments, all this stuff. Next thing I know, even though she and I are co-power of attorney for finances, even though we're all this, I find out that the condo in Simi Valley, this is maybe 5 months after our big confrontation, is been put on the market. She's selling it. So she was supposed to talk to me about that kind of stuff. So it was put on the market. And so my and it's weird how I know. It's my mom's half sister, my aunt, her ex-husband, isn't this crazy? Her ex-husband is a realtor, and they are on really good terms as ex-spouses. They're on really good terms. And he invited my Aunt Kelly to go to a open house. He's like, yeah, this is Keith's condo. And she said, what? He's like, yeah, Nitsy's selling it. And she said, wait a minute, you can't do that. There was this whole thing where Christy caught her making, changing the will and putting her daughter in. And so at that point, we decided to take real legal action. And my uncle, my dad's brother, and my aunt were generous and loving enough to pay for Larry. So they hired him. And that's when he sent a cease and desist letter to Nitsi to stop selling that. You're not supposed to do that. You can't make decisions without talking to Christy about it. And it was something I was supposed to inherit 50% of. And she was going to do it underhandedly. So once she got that cease and desist, she called me, Janice. I was at ballet with my friend Teresa, and she said, Christy, you need to come over right now and pull the knife out of your dad's back, and hung up the phone. Yeah.
What?
I was like, heck no, I'm not driving down to Pomona for you and your daughter to be abusive to me. No, I got a lawyer, because of her behavior 6 months prior. And so I didn't go. I got a really weird email from my dad's email address that I don't think he wrote, just saying, our cat just died and please come down. And I'm really upset about it. My dad loved cats, but it was something about the writing, Janice. It didn't feel like he actually wrote it. So I did reply, I said, Dad, I'm really sorry to hear that Peaches died. I know how much she meant to you, but I can't come down. I needed to stay away. So that was on a Saturday. And on the following Tuesday, I decided to call him. And I knew that he probably wouldn't answer. I left a voicemail. I said, hey, Dad, how you doing? Give me a call when you can. And as you know, he had heart problems. He had Alzheimer's and dementia. Prior to that, he never brought his cell phone with him at all. He would forget his cell phone. And next thing I know, Janice, I got a text from my dad. And basically it was saying, I'm really pissed at you. Don't ever call me again. You've royally screwed up our relationship. And I kind of laughed. I was like, yeah, right. That's not my dad. My dad was a math teacher. He was a veteran. He wasn't a man of words. I kind of laughed at it. But right after that, and I really don't believe for a second, all of a sudden he's texting. Does that even make sense? He's forgetful. He's 140 pounds. He's frail. And all of a sudden he's texting, So
It almost sounds like your evil stepmother,
Yeah.
knew that she is getting caught left and right about how oblivious she is and how greedy she's becoming. And then at this point, maybe it just sounds like she's becoming a psychopath and trying to throw things at you
Yeah.
or trying to harm you in some way. And yeah, and coming from someone especially your parent, and how their habit is very unusual, that using text like this, yeah, it's a common sense. It's very no brainer right there.
Yeah.
So
Thank
what
you.
happened, like?
Yeah, it was really upsetting, and then but also kind of funny because I have a sense of humor. Sometimes it was ridiculous, but then right after that, Janice, she sent an audio message of my dad. I I don't know if you know, but I didn't know at the time how to record an audio message. And when I used to visit, she used to have signs all over the place, which is not unusual for a man with Alzheimer's and dementia to have reminders. So I know she's used to writing out things or printing out things for him to read. But basically, it was a recording of him saying, "You spoiled brat, don't ever come, don't call me, leave me alone." And you could hear, my lawyer said, you could kind of hear paper being rustled in front of, like, before he started talking. And that audio file also was titled, "So You Really Know It's Me Doing the Talking." So it was so awful. It was so awful. And that to me was evidence, which is what you need when you're working with lawyers, is evidence. But it was evidence of not financial abuse. It was evidence of emotional abuse, narcissistic abuse. And it was so upsetting to me. I mean, do you really think for a second that a man who was so frail would all of a sudden be texting me and then recording his voice and titling the audio file? I mean, it's really ridiculous, but it was so upsetting. But it was evidence of other kinds of abuse. It was very upsetting. But I sent it out to everybody. Like, there's no way I'm keeping this, just like what we're doing, you and I discussing this. We need to bring these things to light. And so I sent it out to his best friend, to his brother, my uncle, my aunts and uncles on my mom's side. I have a tremendous, wonderful family that was really supportive of me. In fact, I sent it to his best friend, Bob and Hazel. They were so upset that 2 days later, they got in their car and drove all the way from Ventura County to Pomona to tell her off. So they drove down to tell her, and they played the audio file in front of him, in front of my dad, and he started crying, and they confronted her. So there was a lot of really great supportive people in this during this crazy. Isn't this crazy? So that was evidence of further abuse. And then at that point, my aunt and uncle agreed to start paying Larry, the lawyer, to actually file a lawsuit. And so we were going to prove that he's not okay, that he has dementia and Alzheimer's and a congestive heart failure, and it was elder abuse. So we, at that point, decided to go forward with the lawsuit. And I had to stay away from him, which was hard, but also not hard, because I did not want to be around these women at all. They were sociopaths, and she's so close to her daughter. They always have to be together. And just to think that she would do such awful things to her current husband and his only child to keep us apart when she couldn't even be apart from her daughter. And so that's when we started the lawsuit, and I wasn't able to see him for a while. So, not crazy.
I just want to point it out here to our audience. This story sounds like everyone can relate, especially if you have an elderly parent out there who is just, sometime, as being a child, I understand, like, I'll leave my parents alone. They found love, they found their family. But there are a time and place for you to kind of poke in and go, hey, what's going on, mom and dad? How are you feeling? And I think what Christy went through was exactly that. Like, she was, mind her own business at first. She was happy for her dad, that he found love and peace and all that. But something was poking at her, like, hey, you need to check on your dad. And your dad was like really calling out for help in his own way, because he was just, I guess, grounded by this disease, dementia, that he has. So yeah, just letting you know that the story like this is so powerful, so impactful, because someone know of a person whose story are so similar and familiar to this. And So thank you, Christy, for bringing out this awareness, this important message that really check up on your parents.
Oh,
Whether it's not even parents, could be an uncle, could be anyone that in your loved ones that you have just an ink of thought like, something's going on weird. Like, I don't believe in this person because we all talked about how energetically there's certain people will not vibe well. No matter if they don't even have to say much, but being around certain people, we be like, I don't trust this person. They act kind of weird, whatever they say or their actions speak louder than words. We all
oh,
know that. Yeah. So, yeah, let's continue on the story. So once you got out a lawyer, everything evidence documented, did your dad eventually live with you, or how's that come about? Can you talk more about that, Christy?
sure. Thank you. And you're right in what you're saying. We need to look out for our elders. We need to look out for our elders and also for ourselves, because this is something that can affect, we don't want to talk about it, but us, we might at some point be kind of frail, and we need to take care of ourselves physically and mentally. And take the thing that my dad did right was he had his documents done and he gave them to me, his trust and will. But anyways,
And really quick, I just want to
yeah,
say that too.
yeah.
Speaking of narcissistic personality out there, or
Ugh.
people who are just takers, we
Mhm.
all know someone out there like that.
Yeah.
So they really feed on people who are very giving, who are caring, who are loving. They know that we are just gonna pour it out. Like, I'm gonna give everything I have. I'll trust you. And these people, they're smart. They're not stupid. I'm sorry, but they're very conniving. They're very scam. What's the word called? Shoot. I can't think of the right word, but yeah, I'll come to that. But yeah, we all know one of these people in our life, whether it could be a stranger, a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be even a coworker, a boss. You never know. So just trust your instinct. Go on.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Exactly, Janice. Yeah. Just, I would call them sociopaths. I think Nitsi was a narcissistic sociopath. She had to be the center of attention. I think her daughter was just a sociopath. She liked to lurk in the shadows and be very secretive. And my dad and I were very trusting and open. And I think a lot of people don't want to know that there's evil out there because we ourselves aren't evil. So we can't even think that somebody would do something like that. Yeah.
I just remember my words, so I just want to poke it in. Con artists.
Yeah. Totally.
Con artists are everywhere. Could be a female, male, doesn't matter. Some people maybe are brought up in that family, they're where they've been trauma to be a con artist, to go, hey, I mean, we can go into this another topic. I'm talking about like more childhood trauma wounds, like the motherhood wounds or the abandoning wounds, where they grow up and they have no one, to look for it. But so then they had to kind of use people, in other words, use people for their entitlement. Like, I gotta,
Yeah.
get my needs met first. It's all about me, and all that thing. Yeah. So con artists
Yeah.
everywhere. They're all over the world.
And they, yeah, and they were both extremely manipulative. They both looked really good. I mean, not to me, but on paper, I guess they both had a lot of stuff done. They had a lot of jewelry. They donated to charity. She donated to my dance company. We were a nonprofit. They did all these things that made them look really good. Her daughter fostered animals, like just that looks good. But then they did these awful things, and I had to get smarter. I had to get smarter because they both were very smart and they knew what they were doing. And I felt that her daughter especially was kind of grooming him. I forgot to mention that before we did the lawsuit, my uncle came down to visit his brother and my cousin, and they came down to visit my dad, and they didn't often visit. And I was so excited. And I took a day off of work. We went to the country club because we didn't go to the country club when I was growing up, but once he married Nitsi, they were country club people. We went to the country club and her daughter was there. Her daughter took her daughter out of school to be there. And her daughter sat near my dad and held his hand. And when they walked around, she was holding my dad's hand. She was very affectionate with my dad. Those kinds of abusive personalities, they groom They groom people, they get them to trust them. And it's like a long game too. He trusted her. That's the daughter. Ugh. So at that time, this was 2018, and I couldn't see him. And it was really hard, but we found out that all of a sudden so they had lawyers now. So she got a lawyer, they got a lawyer for him. So all of a sudden they had lawyers. So there's this back and forth. And they did what guilty entities like to do, is they draw out, because they know how expensive it is to be a petitioner in a lawsuit. They draw it out. They were avoiding getting served. So they avoided the service people who were like, you got served. They avoided them. They made it as expensive as possible. So these other lawyers reported back that my dad was of sound mind, and he made a new trust and will. And as you can imagine, I wasn't in it, and it was her, Nitsi, but then her daughter was, all of a sudden they have a lawyer in their family, and all of a sudden he was the trustee and her daughter was the co-trustee. So all of a sudden now he's fine. So that was their whole thing, is, oh, Keith is fine. He's fine. He knows what he's doing. He just thinks Carrie's a better daughter. Christy's just after his money. It's just ridiculous. And then we found out that she went ahead, and after they got a new trust and will, they sold that property in my hometown that we had sent the cease and desist. They sold that. And so there that went. But I want to skip ahead a little bit to let you know that what happened, that was, the summer is when they sold it. But then around December, there's one person in this family of 27. There's only one person that reached out to me and just said, through a text, she said, I want to let you know I'm not happy with I'm really upset with all that's going on. And this is all Carrie. So basically this girl was saying that it's all Nitsi's daughter who's doing all this. She's like, this is all Carrie. So I had someone reach out to me. And at Christmas time, that same person took a picture of my dad and said, just so you know, he's doing okay. Here's a picture of him. So there was only one person in that family who reached out to me, and it really meant a lot to me. And so around Christmas time, I decided to call him. And if you remember, last time I called him was when I got that awful text and voice where he was treated like a hostage, recording a message to me. So I was nervous about it. But I decided to call him. It was right before Christmas at his best friend Bob's house. So I had a witness. And I called him, and he answered. And I was like, Dad, hey, Merry Christmas. How you doing? He's like, hey, kid, how you doing? And then I heard, oh, hold on. And then the phone was disconnected. So my dad's friend heard the whole thing, but I got to talk to him briefly. And so he was alive. Like, we didn't know, maybe he was dead and they were just pretending that he was alive. And so the next day, my lawyer friend Larry gets a phone call from her lawyer saying that Christy called and was harassing Keith and talking about the will, like all this stupid nonsense. It was so stupid. But anyways, that was around Christmas time. And then that person sent me the text of my dad and said he's okay. So I knew he was alive, because we didn't know. But then we found out close to my birthday, which my birthday's in January, we found out that my dad had been arrested. So Janice, the story will calm down. This is kind of maybe the last big drama thing, but we got a police report. So this is all awful stuff. The text, the selling of the property, the voice, the audio, all that stuff is awful, but it's evidence. And you need evidence in a court of law, especially if you're suing somebody. Our evidence was this man is not okay and he's being exploited and abused. So we had evidence. And even this person who texted me to say he was okay, it's kind of, I was keeping everything. I was documenting everything. So we found out my dad got arrested, which was awful to hear, but it was evidence that he was not okay. So basically what happened is my dad got in an argument with Nitsi and he left the home. He was like a silver alert. If you know what a silver alert is, he left. If you get a notice on your phone, silver alert, that means an elderly person is in distress. So he left her house, walked up to a mall and found a police officer. And he said, my name is Keith Barker. And this is all true, Janice. He was a veteran. He was in the Coast Guard. And he was telling the police officer, he said, I need to get away from my wife. He said, I was a commander in the United States Coast Guard, and I need to be taken to Point Magoo in Ventura area to the naval base because I'm trying to get away from my wife. You need to help me. So basically he was saying, I need to get away from her. And I think maybe as a veteran, maybe if you're in distress, if you're in trouble, maybe you can stay at a naval base. I don't know if that's true, but that's what was true in his mind. And then the police record says that she found him and her daughter. And when he saw her, he balled up his fist and said, "Oh, I'm gonna sock you," or something like that. Like he threatened to punch her, which he didn't do. But because he did that, they saw him as a threat to her and to himself. And so they arrested him on a charge called a 5150, which basically means instead of arresting and putting them in jail, they get arrested and put in a psychiatric ward in a hospital. So this was all awful to hear that my dad got arrested, but it was great for our lawsuit because he wasn't okay.
But it sure sounds like it's a call for help from
Oh,
him,
for sure.
because I mean, he's practically sound like he's a prisoner, and so that was his way to escape.
Yeah.
And something I truly feel. I mean, I'm not saying I have any, I'm not dementia or anything like that, but I just can't imagine like people who are experiencing dementia, they still have that
Oh, for sure.
little awareness, an awareness of their whether what their career brought, like your dad, he's in the naval, that was his calling, saying, I really need help, I need to get myself out there, get help,
Yeah.
because I can't rely on my daughter. But sometimes you draw a line, in certain, everybody, we draw lines, and that's their line. Is, I'm sorry, but I think what he did was so courageous and so brave of him. So wow.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. And my experience with him, because the story does have a bit of a happy ending and we're kind of getting close to that, but I spent a lot of time with him. And often a person with Alzheimer's and dementia, yes, sometimes they're extremely forgetful and they kind of talk like they're drunk or something and gibberish, but often sometimes they're totally who they are. Sometimes they have moments of lucidity. And she said it was because he wanted to buy something off Amazon and she didn't want him to. And maybe that was it, but I really think his soul was saying something's wrong. I'm being treated as a prisoner. I haven't been able to see my only child. I haven't been able to communicate. I need help, police officers. He recognized that those were there to help him. So at that point, and that he could be taken to the naval base, which was like, I guess maybe a real thing that they could, if they were in distress. So he was taken to the mental, not the mental hospital, but a psychiatric ward at a hospital. And at that point, he was in a neutral place and I could see him. So Janice, on
Yay.
my birthday in January, I was reunited with my dad after not seeing him for almost a year. And he was crying when I got there. But my Aunt Kelly, my mom's sister, she came with me and we all started crying. But then he got so happy. And some of his friends from the high school he taught at were there. And they brought him a teaching award. And he was so happy. So I was reunited with him on my birthday in 2019. In 2019. So that was really bad for their case. They're like, oh, no, he's okay. No, he's not okay. He was arrested and put in a psychiatric ward because the police didn't think he was okay.
That's
So,
beautiful. And because I mean, you brought it up earlier that your mom passed away, and I think, energetically, their spirit, maybe her spirit was really guiding him. And then it almost sounds like it's, you know, whether you believe your guardian angel is still around, but your loved one will always like guide you in some way. I, yeah, what do you think about that? Your mom like
oh,
really encouraging him and making you guys reunited.
yeah. Yeah, Janice, I'm so glad you said that because I know you've had some beautiful encounters with your mom as well as your guardian angel. There was a lot of synchronicity. And I do want to just say in that prior, this was January, but that prior summer when I couldn't see him was a high school reunion of mine. And I went to the high school reunion. It happened to be on my mom's birthday. And so my dad was a high school teacher and I thought, why don't I go and I talk to his former students? So I did do that and I let them know what was going on. And I had these postcards that were pictures of Yosemite, which is his absolute favorite place. And I had former students write him little messages. I had this whole plan and it felt really good. Again, it was my mom's birthday. And one of the reasons why I went there was because there was a time capsule. So I was in high school, part of the time capsule committee. And anybody who wanted to participate put something in the time capsule. And at our 25th reunion, we opened up the time capsule. So that's what was going on in 2018. I had written a letter to myself, Janice. My 18-year-old self wrote a letter to my 40-something self. And I'm like, I have to get that letter. I don't want anybody to read it because it's probably so embarrassing. So I had to get that letter. But what was in the envelope with the letter that I wrote to myself was a letter my mom wrote to me.
Wow.
So when I was in high school, my mom wrote a letter to me and snuck it and put it in the envelope. So on her birthday, when I was isolated from my dad, I got a letter from her. I have it right here. I won't read the whole thing, but I started crying, and you can see it says, "Love, Mom." And just to see her handwriting, it was a total surprise. So my friend Teresa, I mentioned, who went to Alaska with me, and my other friend Erin, we're just crying. We were crying.
Because, it was the right time for you to find that letter. It was a perfect timing because I think exactly what you said. Like sometime I go over, while I'm organizing my place, I would find little bits and pieces of my mom's picture. Like I found this picture randomly at my dad's place. It was a photo booth picture of us hugging. I kissed her, she kissed me. And it was just so beautiful. I wasn't like, sad or anything, but I was just like, thank you, Mom.
Yes.
You were just thinking exactly what I wanted to know, that you're here. Like that was the message. Like she's telling me that, I'm here with you.
Yeah.
I'm always here with you. So yeah, I love you. And this is a picture of me to show you that we're always bonded and connected.
Yeah. Your mom and my mom, they're totally, it's so real.
Yeah.
And that's so beautiful, Janice. And I wanted to share that with you because I know of your connection with your mom, and they love us just like you
Yeah.
love your daughters.
I feel like I feel her more than when she was alive, I guess,
Yeah.
because this energy is really powerful, because once you're in tune with yourself and you choose to kind of let your inner intuition guide you to go, hey, I love you, I can feel you around me, I'm not sad, because they don't want us to feel sad. They want us to feel like, hey, um we got your back. You might go into stumble. Oh, speaking of that, really, Christy, so yesterday on 8/11 was my birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I was out for dinner, and I put my stuff in this new backpack of mine. And I guess I got caught up with, okay, while I'm waiting for my kids to come, I'm just gonna take selfie picture and all that. And I totally forgot about my backpack. And then once we got settled down in our table, that's when it clicked. I was like, oh my God. If Because your wallet's in there and everything.
Yeah.
And I went outside the restaurant. There was like little table around, and so I was asking people, "Have you seen this black backpack?" No, I haven't. I'm like, oh, I was so distraught. And then I asked the our waiter. He was really nice, and he said, "What? Oh, you mean, yeah? There was someone who brought us a black backpack. You mean that one?" He pointed. He put it in behind his counter. I was like, oh, "Yes, that's my backpack. Oh my goodness, I was so grateful." But immediately, guess what, Chrissy? It draw me to her, to my mom. I was like, "Thank you, Mom. Thank you for still looking out for me." Sometimes I can be a clutter nuts, but like she was, I don't know what it is. Like I just thought I lost it because I
Yeah.
totally blanked out. I was so into whatever I was into, and then I blanked out about the backpack because, anyway, so many stuff to carry. Just to tell you that these things are real. Like
Oh,
your loved one is always watching you. They might not be there physically, but they might energetically tell like a stranger, hey, that person probably saw you outside with a black backpack, and then happened to see you left the backpack there, and they're like, okay, she went to that restaurant, so I probably need it just happened like they they told the restaurant owner from where we're staying at, because there's multiple restaurant around.
yeah.
It's like, is that a coincidence? Like, yeah,
I don't
but like
know.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, this stuff is truly bizarre, but at the same time heartwarming, because more and more sign of her being around and still protecting me about little things like this. I feel comfort. I feel such a comfort feeling,
Yeah.
and so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, no matter how long they pass away, they're always in your heart. That's why I teach my daughters too. Like, where's mama? Mama's always in my heart. You can always speak to her at any time, any place. You just kind of breathe and tune in, you know? Yeah, we're all connected.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I love this conversation too. Yeah, it definitely, my mom was working her magic as my mom and as my angel. And like I said, my aunts and uncles, my dad's brother and his wife, they emailed me on exactly the right moment to go down and visit my dad. That's when those crazy fires were going on. And it was just like everything was aligned. And just to kind of put a little bit of a happy spin on this, after he was arrested, she put him in a really, to be honest, a really nice home for dementia patients. And we ended up settling. I didn't want to, in court, we ended up settling in court. I didn't want to settle because it wasn't about the money for me. I wanted it to be exactly what my dad wanted and his trust and will. But it's so expensive. And my aunt and uncle, I mean, it was getting really expensive for them. And I couldn't let them continue to pay this amount. So we ended up settling, and I got some money from that sale of that condo and that I was supposed to, that she went ahead and sold, and I started paying the lawyer. So I started paying lawyer fees from that settlement. And then she and I were still power of attorney for healthcare. And as his wife, they have collected, what is it called? I forgot what it's called, but their finances are commingled. So as much as I felt that he wanted me to be power of attorney for finances with her, it made sense that I wasn't, because it was her money too. Community property is what I'm thinking of. And then the court recommended, and we hired a woman who was a neutral third party to safeguard the rest of his trust money. So I got the money from the sale. And then there was this woman who guarded the rest of his money from the wife and from me, as if I was going to get it. But so there was some money that was saved in case he needed it, in case his healthcare needed it. And she was hired as a neutral third party. And then from then on, I visited him at this home until everything shut down in March 2020. But at that time, he was kind of okay, but his heart started to really fail. He had congestive heart failure, but it really started to fail. And they decided at that home that he should be in hospice care. And they made an exception because prior to that, no families could visit, right? This is March 2020, April 2020. I couldn't visit him. We did a FaceTime. But because they decided he needed hospice services, they made an exception for visitation. So they decided that that's like end of life. So I was able to visit him from April 2020 to August 2020 when he died. We're actually about on the third anniversary of his death. So I spent so much time with him. All that time that we missed when we were apart, I spent time with him. I got to be really good friends with the staff. It's actually a happy ending. And there's other little drama things that kind of happen, but I don't want to overwhelm you or your audience anymore. But it's just, we need to love our family. We need to love our elders. We need to take care of ourselves too. I mean, I haven't done it, but it might be a good idea to think about what you want in place in case something happens to you, like a will and trust and all that. But we need to love our family members and not stay away. And he endured a terrible time, but he's with my mom now, and I'm forever changed. I mean, gosh, I had to get a lot smarter. I had to learn all this legal jargon. I had to understand that narcissistic sociopathic personality that's extremely manipulative. And like I said, they don't appear with horns and a red face and like a pitchfork, they looked really good, these women. I mean, not to me, but you know what I mean? Like they know how to present themselves. They know how they put makeup on, but they had some sort of like permanent makeup on. So, but you get it. Like they knew how to put their faces on, they know how to look good and know what to say. And like I said, it was his wife, I believe, was a narcissistic sociopath, and her daughter was just a sociopath. And they wanted to continue this lavish lifestyle of these crazy cruises. I don't know if they still do it. I'm not in touch at all with them. But I had to get a whole lot smarter. So, and I want to say there's somebody, her name is Carrie Kasem. She's Casey Kasem's daughter. Do you know who Casey Kasem is? Okay.
I previously heard her talk about it
Yeah.
on Nick Varium,
Yep.
Nick V.
Yeah.
She was talking about specifically the elderly abuse, where
Yeah.
she went almost similar case
Yeah,
like you. She was fighting for her dad, and
yeah,
it,
it,
it's
yeah.
bringing a lot of awareness. And then she said, you know what? Exactly what you said. Take care of your loved ones. Check up on them. Yeah.
Yeah, she's a total warrior. I'm glad you've heard of her because if anyone's listening, she's a public person who has a website, and her story is her story, and I don't want to paraphrase it, but there was similar drama to me. She had totally crazy stepmother, but the drama continued even after Casey Kasem died. It was terrible. But she's been a total warrior. She has a website called kasemcares.org, Kasem with a K, and she has done things with legislation with different states. She's really done a lot of wonderful things. So if anyone who relates to my story or has witnessed anything, she's a great resource. She's on Instagram, and I'm not going to paraphrase her story because it's her story, but she's amazing. And yeah, she endured a very similar thing. And her poor dad, her dad seemed very the voice of Shaggy on Scooby-Doo. He seemed kind of like my dad in the sense, like very sweet, very gentle and trusting. My dad was kind of like that too. So it's weird that he has something in common with Casey Kasem. But Carrie Kasem, I can't speak enough compliments of her. She's a tremendous warrior in the elder abuse awareness movement for sure. Yeah.
And I'm sure she really inspired you to tell your own story like right now.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really empowerment. And we're here just to really let people know that you're not alone, and just like you and millions of people who might gone through this, maybe in silent or doesn't know what to do, but it's really the time is now. The time is now to speak up for you and your loved ones. Um, so during, you said the 2020 is when the time you really had a close bond with your dad for a brief period of time. Um, so he passed away what year? So how long was it before he passed away?
He passed. So all the drama started maybe 2016. He died in 2020. So it's almost been 3 years, August 27th, 2020. And it was I hadn't seen her and her daughter, but they were in the room when he died. It was really hard to be around those people, but I did it. I got through it okay. I didn't say anything to them for 6 hours. But it didn't feel right to talk about his situation so soon after it happened, even though a lot of people knew in real time, a lot of his students and my friends and friends of the family. But because 2020 was such an intense year and a lot
Yes.
of people were suffering, and it didn't feel right it felt like too soon to talk about it. But yeah, I am inspired by Carrie Kasem, and I feel like it's a subject that needs to be talked about. It's part of his story, it's part of his life. And so, did that answer your question? So
Yeah.
he was in hospice from April 2020 to August 2020. So during that 4 month period, I was with him almost every day. So we made up for lost time for sure. And it was wonderful. And I got to know the staff there. It was a great place. He was at peace, and he's with my mom now. I feel like he's safe from her. He's safe from any more manipulation and con artist, like you said, con artist, fraudulent behavior. He's safe from that. And I'm very proud of him. He was a tremendous teacher. His students, he was beloved by his colleagues and his students. And I'm very proud to be his daughter, both my parents. But he in particular, he was my best friend. He was my best friend.
And he's always around you. Have he given you any sign like your mom did?
Ah, not so much. He was a calculus teacher, and I kind of wish that all of a sudden I could be really good at math. Maybe ballet to me is very mathematical because it's really difficult. I feel like that's when I'm a mathematician. But I can't think of any right now, but I know he is. Maybe the inspiration to contact you about this, maybe that was his inspiration, because I honestly wasn't sure if you would. I'm really grateful that you were willing to go into this uncomfortable, dark subject. And we both are very positive people, but it's part of my story, so I'm really appreciative that you were willing to do that as my friend and podcaster. And maybe that was him. Maybe he was like, hey, Janice is doing something fun, why don't you just let her know? Maybe it's time to talk about it publicly, because it does need to be talked about. We don't want to keep abuse hidden away in the dark. We need to bring it to light.
Yeah, definitely. And just like you said, everything is right timing. I wanted to do a podcast back into 2020, but it wasn't the right time for me.
Yeah.
And I think what it was like, maybe this was his way sending a message to you, saying, "Hey, the time is now. I want to share my story with the world." That could be really impactful and just encourage and inspire others to speak up or help their loved ones, check in on them. And I think it's very important. So yeah, who knows, but your words and everything that he done for you, certainly it surpassed to you. You're an educator. You're also learning about so many things. It's so wonderful. And so real quick, let me ask you about, like, so now that the case is settled, obviously your beloved father had passed away. So okay, go into like maybe I guess because of the inheritance, the will, what happened? Like, did the ex-wife, his widow now, get anything, or how about you, or
Yeah.
what's the justice behind all this?
Thank you. I really didn't want to settle, as I told you, because it wasn't about the money for me. So I basically kind of got inheritance prior to his dying with that sale of that condo.
Okay.
Um, what would have happened if we had been in front of a judge and a jury and they were found guilty, she and her daughter? What happens, the consequences, those people get disinherited. So that's
Mm.
what I wanted. I
But they
wanted her
got a
daughter,
little bit something. I see.
but we got a settlement. So basically that settlement to me was pre-inheritance. I mean, before he died. There was one bank account that he had both me and her daughter as a beneficiary. There was some money with that, but basically as his wife, I mean, it's been very humble. Like I said, the settlement, I had to pay for the lawyer, and lawyers are really expensive.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it went to her. So, and I'm not in touch. I don't have anything to do with that family. And I think there were really nice people in the group. I think I told you some of the step family I liked. I think that I was disappointed that I only heard from one, but at the same time, it's all good. They were probably, she was a very manipulative person, and maybe they were scared too. I wanted it to be in court, and I wanted that family to say that he's not okay. We've witnessed this and that and this and that. But I wanted my
I
big
think that
moment.
was Yeah, I think that was your dad's gift, was to make sure you're provided and
Uh-huh.
you're taken care of. And so, you know what? It is sometime there's a time and place for you to just really disconnect with people who doesn't align with you,
Yeah.
and keep your peace, right? And
Yeah.
protect your energy instead of, like, bursting out more negativity and more drama with these people. Because, you and I think we talk about briefly, we truly believe in this whole karma thing. So it is, what below, what comes back is a boomerang type of energy out there. Uh, what you done to other will be done to you. I truly believe that everyone will serve somehow, some way. And really, our best revenge is just be happy, right? And move on with our lives and not care what they thinking, what they're doing, what they're up to. It's just really about us continuing and evolving and being our happiest self, being content, being peaceful. That is the biggest revenge ever. I can't
Right.
imagine if your stepmom one of these days, like, stalk on you. I'm sure those, it's typically their personality, right? Ooh, I wonder what's Christy doing, and then she see that you're so glowing, do your thing, and you know, um, it'll be so much envy for them.
Well, yeah, and I like to laugh, and I think those evil entities, those narcissistic sociopaths, do not like to be laughed at, and they usually don't have senses of humor. These two did not have senses of humor, and although, well, yeah, Mitzi used to talk about their intimate life, my dad and hers intimate life, and which was really uncomfortable. This is when they first got married, but I thought it was kind of funny, but it was also really weird. So I would laugh at her, but they really don't like it when you can laugh at them. Because honestly, when I got that awful text from her, and there were a few other situations where she emailed my mom's brother as my dad, like there were other times when she pretended to be my dad, and it was ridiculous. Like there's no way my dad would have said these things. So we laughed at her, And so that's kind of fun. They don't like that.
Real quick, just a quick question.
Yeah.
I know with these type of relationship, and obviously your dad was targeted.
Yeah.
Um, were they married really soon, like really short after they dated and some? Yes, that's like the number one. That's called love bombing.
Hmm.
Like these people will target a certain, really empath and people who are loving and giving. They will give them everything they want. I'm the one. I'm your soulmate. They'll say the right thing. They'll do the right thing. Everything is just mirror. It's just a mask until it falls off, and then you realize they're a greedy scum.
Yeah, I want to tell you something else too that I learned through the step family. Supposedly, my dad looked a lot like her former husband, the man who fathered all those children. Supposedly, he looked a lot like her.
Hmm.
So it's just interesting. But yeah, he was very trusting and he was so lonely and so vulnerable when my mom died. He was completely lost. And again, he would say things to his best friend, I have more money. I have more money than I know what to do with. So he was this lost, innocent, trusting man who had more money than he knew what to do with. And yeah, I feel like he was targeted for sure. And by both mother and daughter. Yeah. Ugh.
That's crazy. Can I share with you really my grandpa? Just a very brief summary. Exactly. He came here. He's a senior, vulnerable. He's a widow, and he lived with my mom for while he was in his, I guess, elderly years. And oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Backtrack. He came. So he came from Vietnam. He was living on his own at first. He has his own apartment. Somehow, some way, I guess, the friends that he connected lure him in, saying the right things, say, hey, you should marry my daughter who's in Vietnam. So my grandpa is in his 80s, and the the lady he got introduced was in her 50s. She has a 18-year-old daughter or whatever, grown daughter, and groom him and make him believe that, yeah, we'll pay you, just go back and marry her so she can come to United States. To be honest with you, this whole marrying other culture, going to another country to marry, it's a very big booming business. I don't know if you heard about that. It's like people marry to come here for visa. Sometimes, to be honest with you, there's a like a straightforward um agreement between two parties. Hey, you go marry my daughter, my son over there, I'll pay you whatever, 10, 15 grand, 20, 30 grand, whatever they agree, right? And sometimes those people do get paid. However, I would say most people never got paid and got lured into this hoax that um who knows, they might think this marriage could be real, just like my grandpa. So he went back to Vietnam. He married this lady who's in her 50, had a whole, so-called ceremony out there, and friends invited, like wedding, a wedding day, right? She came here to, and when you marry someone from another country, guess what? They come here very fast. So marrying a spouse, I think it only take maybe 6 months to a year, like for waiting wise, paperwork to get in, marriage work, license, all that. But for sponsoring a sister, a sibling, let's say if I have a sibling in Vietnam or another country, that would take probably 10 years, sometimes, 5, 10 years, something like that. So there's different criteria for different cases. So going back to my grandpa, he this lady we know nothing about, and I'm just hearing rumors. I'm just a grandchild, right? I'm hearing rumor from my mom, my uncle, and stuff like that. Oh, did you know grandpa's gonna have this lady over and blah blah blah, and her family is in San Diego. So she, the thing with this whole narcissistic abuse, um you can say that they are very secretive. They
Mhm.
really want you, like you, Christy, and me, and their loved ones, the victim of the parents, of the victim family, I mean, to be out of the
Oh yeah.
out of it. Like they don't want you to know about it. They don't want me to know about it. They're very secretive. That's how they groom these grandpa, elderly or anyone they targeted. So fast forward, she came over. We don't have no idea when. I think I from what I heard, this woman and her daughter flew from Vietnam, lived with my grandpa for, oh my God, less than 1 month. One day she called up her family member from San Diego and they came pick her up. That was the end of it. She just told her like, see ya. And guess what? My grandfather did never get paid 1 cent that he
Wow.
was promised. I think their agreement was 15 grand or something like that, right?
Ugh.
And obviously it put him in such distraught and shocked, who knows,
Ugh.
and heartbreaking for him. And he soon later like collapsed. And he had my mom had to take him in, and he was living with my mom under her care because he can't be on his own because he has an injured knee or something like that. So just to let you know, like there's really common stories like this are everywhere in every countries, every culture, everyone grandpa, especially I feel in this elderly statistic because yes, they're lonely. Most of them are widow, and with the scam artists right now, they are desperate, desperate for money. Online dating, I would not recommend because that's where they are too. Like
Yeah.
yeah, they know. Oh my God, scam artists like in the dating online world, they will say all sort of things. I love you. They say it very fast. Oh, you're the one for me. I will do everything for you. However, they'll make all the excuses in the world, to maybe see you, to come video you, and those are just some of the red flag. I'm just talking about online dating. If they're not willing to be meeting you first and foremost, they're taking their sweet time. That's a red flag. That's not a real person. They're like just in Nigeria scamming you or something. Just to FYI. So, like I said, this whole scamming, conning artists is worldwide. It's online dating. This is why I don't encourage people to be online because there's so many catfish, so many fake profile. You They look beautiful online. All the profile description looks like they're the dream woman, dream man out there for you, but they're really not. So I encourage just people really like protect yourself. If anything sounds good to be true, start asking, start digging, start asking, talk to a friend like, hey, I met this person, what do you think of it?
Yeah.
Maybe they have a better intuitive awareness than you, so it's okay to ask question. But unfortunately, we live in this world where most people tend to isolate themselves, right? And until the damage is done. So unfortunately, that's what happened to my grandfather. It's a
Wow.
very similar case. He got catfish and he got pretty much groomed and believed that it was a marriage, and then this lady jam off. Um, and I'm hearing about it. I'm pissed, but I try to. Oh well, that's his life. What can we do about it? But
Yeah.
unfortunately,
It's tricky with the elderly because speaking for my dad and maybe your grandpa was like this too, they're kind of like children, and you're a mom, as you know, but they're like children but with money. It's not unusual for the elderly to have money but not be totally thinking clearly and making mistakes or just kind of clumsy, or they're it's just yeah, it's really, that's, thank you for sharing though. I mean, it is very common. It's awful, but it's common. Ugh. Ugh.
ugh.
We're gonna fight it, you and I, and Carrie Kasem. We will fight. We're fighting. You know.
Regardless of what, like I think, what we learned from Michael Jaco is, whether we don't like them and things like that, we don't have to necessarily think about them too much, but just send them love bubbles because we know these people who are very traumatically not all there, and they just came from such a wounded place in their heart, and that's why they do what they do. But I always tell people, people, no matter what, the people in my past have hurt me. I still, if they do come across my mind, I just send them, hey, I wish you healing. I wish you that you find your peace and love. That's something like that. Simple as that. You don't have to go into too much of it, because in the end, we want this world to change, right, for the better, instead of like uh, we're just really changing consciousness one person at a time. And that's exactly what you and I are doing, Christy, is really sharing our story and empowering others that you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Use your voice.
Yeah. I'm so glad to
um
talk about this crazy tale, this crazy story. Anyways, go ahead. Pardon me.
oh, no worries. So you know I'm thank you for sharing all the wonderful detail and information about how to get your dad the right lawyer and the right people involved. um can you share with us, maybe, what are your like, if you have like, share with other people, if they ever spot something similar to your case, what should they do, what should be the first step, you know on and on.
Well, thank you for asking. I would definitely do your best to not stay away from that person. And if you were someone like me who I didn't have a husband or family, like a family unit, I would try to get other people there too as a witness, if that makes sense. Because when my friend Teresa went with me to Alaska, it was really nice to have someone else there to be a witness. So it's very important not to stay away from that person unless you're like me, where it felt like my safety would have been put at risk if I was there. So, just keep close, visit when you can, and also let people know. I talked to a lot of my dad's friends because I wanted them to call him. So maybe if she wouldn't let me talk to him, at least maybe a friend could be able to talk to him. And she kind of did the same type of things, but talk to people about it. And I know there's also, I don't know. I don't know if it's totally recommended, but kind of like it's like a elderly, where you can report if you think a family member is experiencing elder abuse, and they can send a social worker. I can't remember what it's called. My lawyer at the time said he didn't recommend doing it because it might get too complicated. But sometimes you can call those people and they can go and check on somebody if you think someone's isolated or not doing okay. I can't remember the acronym. That's something that probably Carrie Kasem would have on her site. But I would just do your best to stay in their life. And I sent him text. I didn't know if he really was reading them, but I would send him texts periodically. I love you, Dad. I miss you. I didn't, after that awful recording, I didn't get anything else, but I sent him that just thinking maybe he'll look at it. Maybe he'll know that. And I visualize and I pray, and I would visualize that I would be with him. And in my visualization, he actually turned to me and started crying and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I did this. But I said, it's okay. It's okay, Dad. I got this. I'm going to take care of you. But I would visualize being there with him and protecting him. So that's something that I did utilize. So I would always invoke the power of God. That's what I would do. But I would just talk about it and don't keep it in the dark, and share. If you have evidence, like I did, share it with people so you have witnesses. Yeah,
Yeah, document everything, right?
exactly. Yeah,
And
document.
I agree with you. Praying, even though sometimes things are out of your control, you might not be around them, you can't be around them, or the insights of stuff. But I do believe in the whole prayer from afar. It's like sending like that. Hey, I'm sending my father this protective energy. Please protect him wherever he's doing, or please um, guide him and heal him, right? Well, whatever you whatever you believe, your higher self, God, universe, things like that. So I really truly believe those prayers do work, because you're sending directive intention,
Mhm.
um, frequency out there, like you mentioned, the whole synchronicity. There's a reason why I think about you and you call me, you know, or I get a text from you, or certain things like that. It's really happening. We're all
Yeah,
connected in some way.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah. So I'm gonna go briefly talk about your other passion that you really got into. You're educating, as you're learning still about gold and silver. As we all know, the dollar right now is really kind of on shaking ground. Uh, like going to grocery shopping is quite a shock for many people because every time you go, you're looking at your bill, you're like, it's getting more expensive.
Yeah.
The living style is just crazy right now. So we're one thing we know for sure to have this big awakening is when it affect your pockets,
Yeah.
everyone's pocket. That's
Yeah.
when people start questioning and start,
Yeah.
what? What's going on? No, they're not in the bubble anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been hearing a lot about gold and silver,
Yeah.
a lot of podcasts, a lot of alternative podcaster out there who really interview. I hear about Bitcoin, XRP, uh, gold it's going up, silver is going up. Anyway, can you just let us know a little bit about what you learned so far?
Yeah.
Maybe if they want to get in touch to you to get to know more about that, Christy.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So, after going through all this experience with the shenanigans that went on with my dad's will and trust and coming through all that, I got pretty feisty. And I might not have been as feisty before, but really feisty, especially about my money. Especially, I had to work for it. I was lucky to get a bit of inheritance, but I had to work for it and I had to protect him. So I have this kind of warrior, feisty spirit. And after he died, I was cocooning myself a bit. And I was watching a lot of videos, and I started hearing in 2020 people that I respect talking about purchasing gold and silver. And to me, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I had never heard it before. So I heard a lot of people talking about it, but it took me about 2 years before I actually got into the space of purchasing gold and silver. And actually, I purchased mostly silver. And I really like the company that I'm working with. After dealing with con artists, like you said, fraudulent people, I feel like I found a community and a company that's very transparent, and they offer education if you decide to join the membership. If you're someone like me, because some people have already known about buying gold and silver, but I needed education. And as a daughter of two public school educators and a bit of an educator myself, education is really important to me. So they offer education. And there's also a community aspect too. And besides meeting you and our other friends, and I have some really amazing friends that have been longtime friends, it was pretty traumatic seeing people act so terribly when it came to money. You know, these two women acted so terribly. And I feel that this membership, the community, the people I've met are very family oriented. They're very collaborative, and they're very supportive of each other. So it's just been a wonderful community that I've been a part of. And I'm happy to share more information if that resonates with anybody, if anyone wants to hear a little bit more. So, yeah. Silver.
What is the website name and or company name?
Well, you can go to my email address, which is silverandgoldforall@gmail.com. So that's silver and gold word for all, number 4. And you can just send me an email and I can give anybody a little bit more information if they want to know. Yeah.
Awesome,
So,
awesome.
yeah.
And then they have opportunities to teach other do webinars and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If this is something that resonates with somebody, they also have areas in which that you can also earn some side income as well. Yeah. So it's a really fun group. And again, it's been really nice meeting people, especially since I dealt with such ugly behavior when it came to money, to see people who are really about lifting each other up and collaborating. So that's what I do.
Oh, that's great. So you're
Yeah.
building a community
Yeah.
through finances. And
Yeah.
that's awesome. Like
Yeah.
we all want to know about finances because the educational system, I'm sorry to say, but they don't really teach us about that.
No,
They
they
don't
don't.
teach us about um
A lot of things.
a lot of things. Saving, especially. It's more about spending. Consumer spending is what we're programmed to.
Uh-huh.
Spend, spend, spend. I still have to break that because I feel like I'm a consumer programmer almost. And I literally have to tell myself this is not right.
Yeah.
I should only buy what I need, you know?
Yeah.
And it's true. So I'm so happy that you shared that there's a community and there's a home base for that, just for people to look into alternative, look into, you know, another form of education to benefit our financial livelihood because you never know of in case of an emergency, right?
Right. And it's good to have tangible assets like people
Mm.
like this woman, Nitsi, she kind of knew that they weren't nice people, but they knew how important it was to have property. And she had a lot of jewelry and and she supposedly came from a very wealthy family. And so that's something that the very wealthy 1%, people might already know that they don't teach us, is that it's really good to have tangible assets like property, land, if you can get it, art, and physical, tangible silver and gold that you can hold in your hand, those kinds of things. That's what I've learned. So, yeah, thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak on that as well.
Yeah, nowadays people don't even trust their own banks
Yeah.
because you
Oh,
hear once in a while you hear this bank collapse, that bank collapse. Like I'm just like, oh my goodness, I need to have something, handy in case of anything. I can't run to the bank and they're closed down because
yeah.
it's been really like really out there nowadays. Like they're either forewarning us that that's gonna happen,
Yeah.
because the whole predictive programming, right? Like in the media, in the movie, the TV shows. I think they're all telling us that this is gonna happen, guys,
Might
and it's
happen.
up to us to be smart and aware of it. And then speaking of the 1%, um, they're like a con artist, like you said. They're very intentional and smart and witty about what type of message they're putting out there to the collective, and they see it as if like, hey, we put the truth out there, in the media, we forewarning you so and so months ago, or they put it in the movies, the whatever it is. And they'll laugh about it, especially when they put it in the comedy, right? A lot of comedian, they will joke about like, yeah, you're all been scam, and we're debt slave, ha 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 ha. Really, they're really telling the truth. We are debt slave. We're consumer debt. That's why millions of people are in debt. We're in a debt society. So anyway, I'm just saying that basically they're telling us that you should be smart about it. It's not our fault that you don't look
Right.
into it. It's not our fault that you're not searching, you're not educating yourself. Sorry, you got yourself in debt, that's your fault. So it's your duty, your responsibility to find the answer for you. And I think with your calling, with everything that you've gone through, what unfortunately those are bad time, painful time of your life, but it really it's an awakening for you, Christy, also to kind of led you into this alternative finances, with the whole gold and silver, just a way to protect yourself and your future.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And like I said, it was kind of like that experience was a bit like boot camp dealing with two women. I was like, okay, now I'm a little more wise and I got through it okay, but it's been such a pleasure to talk to you about it. I didn't realize that your family, your grandfather had also been affected by similar behavior. I think it's more common than we realize that this would happen. So,
Truly common, and
yeah,
at any age, really. It doesn't
yeah,
have to be elderly. It could be these people, they can feel that you're a victim. Okay, they're like a target. They know it, so you just have to. That's why I truly, I'm very grateful. I think just hearing so many stories like yourself, like I want to put together this podcast called I Am Powerful Movement, because if we are truly not connected to ourselves and try to learn about us, our strength and weaknesses. And I really feel like this whole thing with dumbing us down is about not, they really don't want us to know ourselves, know our true strength and power, because all the power we have is within us. Is we don't have to search anywhere. We Unfortunately, people have to learn and live and realize that at a later time, or sometime in some point of their life, right, through experiences and mistakes and failures. But that's why I brought this. I really want to really give you and so many, sorry, to give you and so many other a platform um, about this important story sharing. Hold on real quick, there's an
yeah.
alarm going on.
I'll talk a little. I
But
really
yeah, like what does, okay, a few last words, like how can people reach you, and what are your advocate about this whole awareness will lead you into the
Sure.
future?
Of course, I'm only on Instagram really, and it's underscore Christy Barker, ChristyBarker, all one word. So that's where I am, and I would definitely direct people to Carrie Kasem and her website if you really, because she's a tremendous warrior, like I said before, and she's Kasem Cares with a K, kasemcares.org. She's also on Instagram, Carrie Kasem with a K, Carrie, and Kasem with a K. And then she's, uh, pardon me, Kasem Cares is also on Instagram. And so, but you can, if you want to get a hold of me personally, you can use that email address at silverandgoldforall@gmail.com. And it's just good to talk about it. If you're experiencing anything like that, I'd be glad to be of service if anyone has a family member and they're going through this crazy drama like I was. But again, I would direct people towards kasemcares.org. It's an amazing website. Is your alarm off now?
Uh, I don't know, someone's car alarm's off. Yeah, that's what you get for live streaming.
Oh, yeah,
But
hey.
wow, yeah, please connect with Christy for any questions you might have, anything about elderly abuse in your family, or you might know somebody who is going through that. Maybe you can guide them to the website that she provided, or even Christy herself on her Instagram. She's be happy to help, and that's a very, very generous thing of you to do, is just really spreading awareness and educating others and letting them that they're not alone. Sometimes it's okay to reach out and touch someone's hand and say, hey, I'm here for you. I know we don't know each other, but I understand your journey, I understand your experience, so let's do this together. And it's all about just really asking for help, and that's the biggest thing I always tell people. Like, just the power of asking is so, oh my god, it's so empowering, because we can't do everything alone. I'm sorry, in any business, anything that you do in life, you need a team of people, or you just ask for guidance. It's okay to ask. It doesn't show any weaknesses. It's also, actually, it shows strength, that you are you know trying to better yourself. And I guess, instead of having this bag of baggage and things that you have to carry throughout your life, it's okay to ask, hey, mama, dad, uncle, can you help me with this? I'm bombarded with this. And you gotta manage your time.
Yeah.
So speaking of time,
Yeah.
we are so happy. And this is a great conversation. This is what I love about, just chatting, going with the flow of things. Then I'm actually learning so much from you, Christy, about your story and your experiences. And I thank you for sharing your wisdom to the world out there, and including myself. We're just here to learn from one another. And um, so usually the last word that I ask all my beautiful guests are, okay, if you have three advice you can give to your younger self, if you're sitting in front of your younger self today, what will you say to her?
To my younger self, I would say, love your parents, spend time with them. You are incredibly smart and capable, and you can do anything you set your mind to. That's what I would tell myself.
Aw,
And that I love her. That's four. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay.
that's beautiful, because it's healing when you talk to your inner child, no matter at what stage in your life. um it's really heartwarming.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in to this beautiful chat with Christy and I. And we just bringing so much important awareness and empowering others that you have the power to change your lives and even the people around you. So uh, please be inspired, stand up for yourself, reach out for help. We're all are connected, and we're all here for each other. So thank you for tuning in. Until next time, I'll see you on the next I Am Powerful movement. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.